Hello, everybody. My name is Carol Sufi. I'm the market research analyst at Branch Food, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all today. Branch Food is New England's leading community of food entrepreneurs launching and growing CPG, food tech, and ag tech startups. Since 2015, we've been supporting entrepreneurs in this space by way of industry connections, mentorship, and funding through our sister company, Branch Venture Group. Check out our upcoming webinars, networking sessions, and Food Edge virtual summit on www.branchfood.com. And if you're looking for business support and ways to accelerate your goals, please consider joining our member community. Today, we're thrilled to kick off a four-part series in partnership with Survey.com, a leading merchandising software company who also happen to be our neighbors in Boston. The Discovery Series is a four-part webinar series through which we explore launching in retail, raising capital, marketing products, and developing innovative sampling strategies to achieve go-to-market success. Consumer product discovery and purchase patterns are changing, but despite the rise of online shopping, most purchases still take place in stores. Since winning on shelves is more important than ever, we've invited successful food and beverage entrepreneurs to share their key insights and creative wins so you can increase awareness around new products and drive your return on investment in retail. Special thank you to Survey.com for your support around this series and contributions to the conversations. Survey.com delivers targeted in-store execution, activations, and retail analytics for brands in brick-and-mortar retail. Food, beverage, and CPG clients use Survey.com's mobile technology, industry knowledge, and nationwide team of field reps to bring new products to market and manage the complexity of multiple retailers nationwide. Survey.com's services include retail execution, brand representation and activation, data and analytics. And the company is part of the Trax Retail family with global reach and scale. Today's session, Getting On and Flying Off the Shelves, is our first session in the Discovery series, and it is all about getting your products on the right shelves, achieving sales traction in stores, and expanding your retail footprint, all key to driving sales and building a loyal customer base. Expect to learn key strategies for connecting deeper with buyers and pitching and supporting your products in ways that boost conversion. A couple of notes before we begin. The session will be recorded, it is recorded, and will be shared with all the attendees. The last 15 to 20 minutes will be dedicated to Q&A, so please submit your questions in the Q&A function that you can access on the bottom of your screen throughout the session. To kick off the session, I'd like to welcome our awesome moderator, Tina Adolfsson, who is the Data Innovation and Marketing Lead at Survey.com. Tina has an in-depth familiarity with shopper journeys and brand presence from her days at P&G and Ralph Lauren, and now focuses on the blend of data and tech impacting the retail space. Tina, thank you so much for joining us today and for leading the discussion with Carlos Altschul, who's the CEO of Nix USA, Charles Coristine, who's the founder and CEO of Lesser Evil Brand Snack Company, and Isabella Hughes, who's the co-founder and president of Shaka. Over to you.
Thank you, Carol, and thank you for everything that Branch Food does. Carol was very modest in everything that they do in the community. In addition to their thought leadership, they also do space and they have an angel group. So definitely check out Branch Food if you're unfamiliar. It is my pleasure to have Carlos, who is the CEO of Nix, formerly at Siggy's, and before that at Procter & Gamble. He brings a unique perspective with first a sales perspective, marketing, and eventually CEO, and knows how to grow brands in retail. We're also joined by Charles Coristine, who is part of the Lesser Evil brand, and will tell us about the journey of the Little Buddha and the pork corn puffs and snacks that are healthy and safe for your children to eat. And finally, Bella Hughes, from Shaka Tea. Bella and her husband, co-founder, started Shaka Tea in Hawaii, did very well on the islands, and is now expanding into the US. So we have here someone who started in the United States and has an incredible retail footprint across the US in Charles. We have Carlos, who has Nick's ice cream starting in Europe and now expanding into the US market. And we have Bella taking Shaka tea from the island to the mainland, with all of us going from East to West Coast. Welcome and thank you all for joining me. I want to set the stage with where are you in your journey, a little bit more in depth than what I just mentioned. So Carlos, if you can please talk about where is Nick in the journey of launching ice cream to the US shopper markets?
Yeah, first of all, hi everybody, and I'm glad to be here and glad to share some experiences and insights. For Nick's, we're a company that launched in the US in the fall of 2019, but we've been a company that's been around for over 5 years, and our journey started in Europe, precisely in Sweden. So Nicholas, our founder, is Swedish. He transitioned into the food space after his mom was diagnosed as pre-diabetic. And he figured it'd be easier to change food than to change his mom's eating habits. So that's where he set out to bring the latest in food science and food technology to deliver truly amazing, better for you snacks. And so the journey began in Europe. And then in 2019, they decided to launch in the US and started selling the ice cream for an in-market launch or a national launch in 2020. And today we finished the year in 3,000 stores. We continue to expand going into 2021, and our goal is to have a national distribution by the end of the year and continue to expand, not just in ice cream but beyond. So we just launched our latest category, which is our new protein bars this week. So
congratulations, and I'm sure I will be looking for it very soon. I'm one of the fortunate ones who have Roche Brothers and Whole Foods that carry Nick's for me. Charles, if you could answer the same question, thank you.
So Lesser Evil's been around for actually quite a while. We were founded in 2005 by Gene Hackman and Jim Kramer. I'm sure you've heard of those people. I didn't get involved until basically 2012, so I kind of refounded Lesser Evil. We kind of hit our stride when we took on our own manufacturing. We started as a popcorn brand. We're still primarily a popcorn brand, but we also do puffs and curls and toddler snacks, and we do some keto cookies. So we've diversified a lot in terms of across the snack category. Right now, we're pretty much national. We're broaching on international. We do some business in Europe, the Middle East, Canada, some of the Caribbean islands. We're mainly focused on the US. We're probably in 10 to 15,000 doors in the US right now.
Congratulations on all that success.
No, thank you.
And Bella, would you say hello to the Branch Food community and tell us your story?
Yeah, fantastic. Well, so nice to be here and be with so many brands that I admire on this panel today. So thanks for having me. And a little bit about us, we have a unique hero ingredient that we brew with. It's called mamaki. It's the rarest herbal tea. It's only found and grown in the Hawaiian Islands. So when Harrison, my husband and my co-founder, he and I started Shaka Tea, we actually had to simultaneously not just launch a beverage brand in my home state where I was born and raised and where we're based out of, but we had to really nurture and grow out that supply chain so we could scale nationally. So to date, we've given away 25,000 free mamaki seedlings, and we practice trade, sourcing from 18 small farmers all on Hawaii Island, also known as the Big Island. And what's really, really fantastic is every time they're planting mamaki, they're restoring native ecosystem habitat, and we're able to pay them a premium. So all that being said, the first 3 years, it was really, there was only supply capacity to really do the 4 major Hawaiian islands. At the very end of 2018, we launched in the United States. This is our third year going into business in the US. And this has been an amazing, amazing year. Just so appreciative of all the buyers last year who met through Zoom calls from 3 to 6 in the morning, Hawaiian Standard Time, which was, East Coast time much later in the day. We're 5 to 6 hours behind the time zones out east. And we were able to win and secure a lot of key national retailers. So we are in close to 10,000 doors. Some of our really big things that have just come up, we're in the process of launching nationally in 7-Eleven. So that's a little bit about us and where we are.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So one of the things I want to talk about is people usually think about those first 3 retailers as tough to get into. You really are talking about your product. You don't have data yet. And then after that, I generally advise people that your 4th, 5th, and 6th retailers often come from the data and the success that you had in those initial 3. So Charles, if you could talk to us about, what happened in the beginning and kind of, or when you inherited, walked into lesser
Yeah.
evil, and
Well,
then where did you kind of see those ahas and expand?
Well, there definitely was a pause. So we weren't around for a while. So we basically almost had to restart the company. I think the first 3 retailers were, for us, were actually the easiest, and it got much harder after that, because I think you, as an entrepreneur, you can kind of beg your local grocery chains that are close by that they should give you a shot, and typically they'll buy the local story. So for us, being in the Northeast, it was really Whole Foods on a regional basis, Wegmans and Wakefern that we went to first, and we tried to build a story there. But we did a lot of demoing and stuff, and they got behind the brand, and I'm very thankful for for that first opportunity.
And then where did you go after that? Where did you grow after Whole Foods and Wegmans?
Well, we grew it. I mean, the big thing was it doesn't happen that much anymore, but the big thing for me when back in 2014, 2015 was growing our footprint at Whole Foods. And we had to tackle, basically 1 or 2 regions every year. And it took us probably 4 years of, to get to a national level. So that was a big deal for us, because we had to continuously show that we were, doing a good job in the distribution that we had. I think the first big retailer that took a chance on us was Kroger. We probably landed them within a year or 2, maybe 2015, 2016. That was our first big national one, but we were lucky. We didn't make too many mistakes in going too big too quickly. Because for a long time, we were privately funded. We didn't have a lot of outside money. We had to be really careful in how we grew, because we didn't have a lot of money to waste. And that included in slotting. So anyone that had, what we felt were expensive slotting demands, we stayed away from until we had enough money to do so.
Sounds great. Now, Carlos, you had money on your side. You had a great product on your side. Tell us about how it went in those early conversations. And you can please, go back to the stories of Siggy's, and you can use the stories of Nick's, because, those are 2 different categories with 2 completely different product benefits. But I'm sure you have an interesting story for both.
Yeah, I think, and in both of those cases, you see the range of I think I'll start with Siggy's, which was a little bit kind of along the lines with what Charles said. Siggy, the person, started selling the yogurt in his local farmer's market, and then got discovered by Murray's Cheese in New York City, and eventually got discovered by the buyer of the Whole Foods region, and went Whole Foods region, eventually national with Whole Foods, and then expanded beyond that. For Nick's, we decided, and this was before me joining the company, but the decision was made. There was an opportunity to sign up a national broker from the beginning. They tasted the product at Expo West and thought that we had something really unique and special. And with that, it allowed us to open the door. And having already established brand in Europe, we had the investment and the funding to go and start to build distribution aggressively. And when you have the ability to invest in slotting, a lot of the retailers, especially in the Northeast, are very open and receptive to giving you the meeting, which is the first hurdle, right? But I think what really was breakthrough for us is the product itself. So Luckily, we got to do that in 2019 when they were still doing in-person meetings. So they got to try the product. Wakefern was the first customer who brought us in. They decided they didn't want to wait till 2020. So they brought us in at the end of the year. And soon after that, we were expanding across the Northeast. And then we started kind of building the case once we were in some of the Albertsons banners. We brought that to every other Albertsons banners, and so forth. And we've been building on kind of that success and bringing that success story everywhere.
Sounds great. And Bella, you found a lot of openness in Hawaii to, getting behind the brand, the story, the local founders. What was the story that you brought to the mainland that worked for you?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because definitely echoing my two colleagues on this panel, wherever you are in the world, your local community of buyers, they're going to get behind you. And so, expanding nationally for us, it's very much been about the product. And, more recently, and I know we have questions today about the data that we can get to in more detail then, but what we bring to the table is an herbal tea that is domestically grown, full flavor, but 0 calorie, carb, sugar. We gently sweeten it with monk fruit. So we complement mindful eaters, whether someone is on keto, they're diabetic or pre-diabetic, they're just looking for a non-GMO clean label and to avoid sugar. So it's really been that product proposition, that connectivity to supporting sustainable agriculture and domestic farmers. And then again, that data that's opened doors for us. Some of the first big retailers, though, that we were meeting at Expo, and I think when you're a young brand and you're looking at that first year, we were very bootstraps at an Expo West, the smallest booth. You're like, it's a pain to your heart to spend that much money, but especially if you're based somewhere remote. Like, I'm not based out of LA or near a major metro area. There's no way I can run into people or network except at those trade shows. They've paid dividends. So we were able to sample the product, meet those buyers, and some of the first big retailers to come aboard for us have been in the Giant network. So Giant Landover, part of Ahold, the Fresh Market, and then out west, Gelson's, Bristol Farms. And we were able to utilize the data from our local Whole Foods to launch in the SOPAC region, as well as the Rocky Mountain region.
Cool.
That's great. Now we labeled this, how to get on the shelves, and we've talked about that. And we also want to talk about flying off the shelves. What kind of activities, what kind of shopper marketing activities or marketing plus in-store activities are working really well for you? And Charles, I'll just go to you just to mix it up.
Yeah. Everyone wants off-shelf display. That's the grail. And if you can do a multiple price, and just if your users don't know what a multiple price is, it's a 2 for $5 or a 2 for $6 strategy to encourage trial. We used to demo a lot. It was really hard to quantify demoing when we first started, so we preferred hot price point. For us, we've seen some really good success because we innovate so often. We try to wow our customers by coming up with new items, once or twice a year, and launching those in a big way. We also do a lot of seasonal items. So if the people haven't seen us before, we will do, Thanksgiving, some Thanksgiving items, some Christmas items, some Valentine's Day items. We'll do, summer flavors and stuff like that. So that's worked well for us too.
Very well. Carlos, how about you?
It's been interesting for us because our national launch was in the middle of a pandemic year. But I've also spent my last 10 years working in refrigerated and now frozen. So gone are the days of loading the aisles with displays that that Charles is talking about, and I used to do in my P&G days. So for us, it's about how do we get in the ad, and what does that require? Because we are impulse categories, and we want to make sure we're driving that, and then just getting to the right value that's going to drive the trial. Because what we believe is if we get Nix in people's hands, they will come back after they taste the product. So that during 2020 has been very focused on promotions and price point. But as tools open back up, we're going to complement that with other in-store tactics.
And Bella, what are the choices that have worked for you?
Yeah, I think really honing in on our branding. I mean, I'm very proud of where we are. We didn't obviously launch. No one probably 5 years in or 10 years in is with that initial product design, but we're extraordinarily distinctive on shelf. So that does pop, and it communicates clearly the big why, because of course, being first to market with a unique hero ingredient that no one's ever heard of outside of Hawaii means we need to talk about what type of dieters, what type of mindful eater could we help complement, and then price point. So, you know, at the end of the day, we're in the business of public health. We believe in equitable access, and our product tends to be in the low twos to mid twos. And that's really, really a price point that most customers really can handle. We've been advised, oh, your product's so premium. Why are you $229? You should jump that up to $399. And we're very, very pleased and proud again to be at that price point we are, but still offering a clean label premium. So I think for us, you know, just ensuring that we're really handsy, it is beverage. And, you know, that's one of the reasons why we work with survey.com, particularly in regions where we don't have team members, and building up those relationships and merchandising that high driver volume accounts and ensuring that the product looks great. And then something as simple as neck hanger coupons. So our marketing director out here in Hawaii, Micah, has done some really fun one-liner tags that go seasonal, 50 cents off. They catch eyes and, you know, again, a little bit more inclination to try the product.
Excellent. Now, one of the choices that you often make is regional versus national grocers or national retailers. Where do you guys kind of like draw the line? Sometimes it's hard to manage a large national retailer, and just having that scale is not something everyone has at the first part. So Charles, you want to talk about when you went into those big national ones?
Yeah, so the big national ones are really interesting because the demographics are really hard to needle down on. I mean, they've got stores in really affluent neighborhoods and stores in some not so affluent neighborhoods. So I think what you want to do when you do want to go into a national retailer is be very careful that you don't cast too wide of a net right from the get-go. So, you know, if you're talking about a Walmart or a Target or a Safeway, Albertsons, you want to be very targeted at what stores you go into. So you may go in and they may say, you know what, we want to put you in 2,000 doors, but that may not be the best way to do it. You may say, listen, I want to go into your top 200 or 300 doors, see how I do there, build a story, and then, you know, and then spread from there. Because the last thing you want to do is, if you don't get the velocity right from the get-go in some of their lower stores, it could bring your numbers down, and you could lose your slotting dollars fairly quickly, if that makes any sense.
That does make sense. That would be the opposite of this panel, which is that would be falling off the shelves. We wouldn't want to. So Carlos, how about you? How do you balance, you know, regional retailers often have a very unique point of view in that same city where there is also a Target and also a Walmart and something else.
One, I'll echo what Charles said. I think all retailers now have started to develop the capability of testing. So they have segmented their stores. Some have different clusters of stores and different value. And so understanding that and deciding it's not just a test for the retailer of your brand, but it's a test of your brand for that retailer and whether you want to be in there. So I think that's an excellent thing to consider. There's also different business models for retailers out there. Some rely heavily on slotting. Some, of course, want to lead in terms of EDLP and pricing. So as you choose retailers, it has to make sense with what you are going to be able to support and build sustainable performance in. And that's why I like to say that not all distribution is good distribution, right? And there's some that
really good point. You know,
that can really set you back.
High, low, yeah, whether they make their money off of slotting, whether it's the right fit is so important. You don't want to, you know, just blast yourself out there.
And I think the last piece is online. So there's the regional and national approach, right? And I say have a plan, and then make sure that whatever you're trying to do fits with that plan, and Now, as a founder or as a CEO, you're always adjusting that plan. So I want to be very open about that. But I think also online has become very prominent. Of course, everybody's talking about it. But it also gives you different abilities, right? One, you can go to market much faster. A lot of these online, whether it's the true players or your own DTC, give you the ability to launch products in a month's time and not be tied up to a certain reset. They give you the ability to get consumer and some sort of insight or reaction from consumers in a much faster way. So even if you are thinking of a regional approach, online suddenly gives you the ability to go national, even if you might have the supply chain to support a national grocery rollout.
I agree. And Bella, you chose to go with 7-Eleven. You want to walk us through the decision points there?
Yeah, I think, by virtue of being in a very remote area, I love the idea of like you can choose where you want to go. But, we're out of the most isolated, populated human landmass on Earth, the Hawaiian archipelago. And, we knew we needed to grow. So everyone was like, go inch wide, mile deep, just go to LA and just focus on that market and that market. And, a lot of times when you're bootstraps, not, deep back pocket startup, you kind of just have to take that opportunity to get out of your home market. So some of our first accounts were not necessarily a historic area that probably a more West Coast initial, focus brand would go to. That being said, we've definitely taken holistically as much as possible. How do we do national accounts, regional focus, build a boots on the ground team around that to support that, get some strong, distribution in place as much as possible. So we've done that with accounts like Walmart. We're in the Rocky Mountain region, just got into schematic there. And, I think 7-Eleven is our first big, national retailer across the United States. It just makes sense though for us at this moment in time. Also with convenience being one of those untapped channels in terms of they're beginning to move to healthier, better for you products, and our product fits in to that growing trend. And the buyers have been extremely supportive and helpful. This has been over a year in the works to get here. So really thrilled about that. And just at that buyer level, building that relationship.
The relationships with buyers are incredibly key. And the nice thing about 7-Eleven is it's not the old 7-Eleven that we might have remembered from a couple of decades ago. It is very much leaning into healthier choices, and the Sips and Snacks program, which is where they bring in 25 brands and just test them out in LA, which, is a little healthy forward as far as a shopper. It allows them to know what kinds of products they can expand in. And I think it's a great one for anyone to test. So definitely agree with that. Now we have a couple of questions that have come in because at some points we've mentioned cash. So one of the questions from the audience is, were any of the businesses venture-backed? And if so, how did you navigate the venture-backed desires, which usually comes with profitability, and getting those price points that are right for your market? So who was venture-backed?
We're early venture-backed. We're pre-A, but we have raised VC capital. And, still again, pre-A. So we haven't done one of those big media A rounds that you read about yet. But we're really very much a mission-driven company. And we've spent years working on our margins. My co-founder, Harrison Rice, he literally still does every single item. So like half a penny counts, whether it's a bottle cap or a label, a really great attention to detail there. But, I think it's always about where you're going to grow to, right? And adjusting, of course, as needed. But when you're able to show investors that have that right culture fit for you, like we believe we're building a product, we're building something that's contributing to our community here in Hawaii with sustainable agriculture and economic growth, but equitable access to healthy beverage, that's a really big national why. They've been all very aligned of like where you're going to grow to. We've not taken money from people that wanted to see that quick turnaround in 12 to 18 months. It's really about like, where are we going to be 3 years from now and 5 years? So I think just ensuring there's so many investors out there that whom you're taking money from is the right fit for you and where you're going to grow to can make the process a lot more harmonious.
Yeah. How about you, Charles? What situation did you walk into when you came to Lesser Evil?
It took a while to find our first investor. We're growth equity backed. We took our first investor, I think, in 2018. So 4 years after we started. It's a challenge because you want to grow revenue. We are vertically integrated, meaning we manufacture all our own products. So we tried to ride a really fine line, and Carlos probably understands this, where we want to grow revenue at 40 or 50%, but we also want to focus on EBITDA and focus on our margins. So luckily we have a partner who isn't, because some private equity firms and VC want to see 100% growth every year, and then that's hard to do and kind of keep a balanced approach. So luckily we have a partner who believes in our approach.
And Carlos, what's your cash situation?
Well, I think for us, so a lot of the investors, and we're supported by growth equity as well, that supported the expansion into US had supported the brand back in Sweden. So it was a matter of getting behind. But also, I think what's key is as you are going through every round, you are defining kind of which model you're gonna follow, and making sure that your investors are on board with that model. And that model might mean quick expansion, and it becomes slotting is a requirement of a model of quick expansion. Or if you want to play in the East Coast or the West Coast, you have to take that into consideration, right? It's not an optional spend, especially as you go into traditional grocery. But you might also take a different approach in which you're building it at a different pace. So I think that's the most important piece. And we have some investors that are very founder friendly, I think is the way commonly described, but they just understand what we are trying to do. And I think Bella mentioned that they're clear, and this is they're bought into the impact that we want to make and how we want to change the world. And they understand that will take time, and that will drive kind of our strategy. Now at the same time, we're building a healthy business to go with it, but it's a matter of getting the right investors on board and then aligning them to your distribution strategy. And that evolves, I think, even from round to round.
Yeah. So going into the parts of how important is data, and we all get to go into our inner geeky parts. How key is data as you are making your decisions? And Bella, do you want to start? You're the youngest, so you're the one that has the least data so far.
Yeah. I think when everyone told me this, year one, year two, I was like, what do you mean data? This is about the product and what we're doing. And I was very naive. Quickly learned data buyers are so busy. They are inundated probably with 100 or 200 cold emails. And I am definitely one of those cold emailers and LinkedIn stalkers to find the right buyer, especially now. Of trade shows and meeting people in person. So the quickest way to capture their attention is with a headliner that shows that how your product is driving category growth. So definitely in the past year, we've been absolutely thrilled to have some very compelling spins and IRI data that puts us in the top 5% of fastest growing beverage brands, shows that we're growing 3 times the category average for RTDT across the US, and some case studies in markets and beginning to pull from markets that we want to launch in to show that key retailer that we're growing in some markets 10 to 14 times that market's growth. So I cannot emphasize enough how data-driven, especially for all of you very mission-driven founders, don't be afraid of data. It gets emails open, it gets calls in the books, and the more accounts you win, the bigger why you can serve. So data is definitely key.
Very good. Carlos, do you want to talk to the data?
Yeah, and I think there's all different types of data. So don't feel that you have to go national IRI or Nielsen on day one. Like when I came into Nix, all we were buying is Albertson Symphony data. But instead of being broad, it was pretty deep. It allows us to see consumer behavior and what brands we were sourcing from, who we were sourcing to. So it made that story that we were presenting to all retailers, not just the Adolfsson family retailers, that much richer in terms of the insights we were bringing. So ideally, yes, I always love to see what the buyer sees. So if I could afford every single database out there, we would have it, but we have to be choiceful. Good news is any insight that you can get into will just build your story and make it that much stronger.
Totally agree. How about Charles?
So I'll bring up another point. We use data pretty extensively. So we look at our velocity data. There's different ways to look at it, but we view we've got a portfolio of snacks in a retailer. We want to maintain a partnership with the retailer and thus manage our portfolio for the retailer. So every buyer hates to have to discontinue items. So what we do is we look at our velocity and we will actually call our weaker SKUs ourselves, hopefully before the buyer even does. So we come to a meeting, we've actually analyzed our data and say, we don't like the performance of these 3 or 4 SKUs. Here's what we've done to replace them with things that we think are better. And these are the reasons why we think they're better. And I think that approach really works well. So you're really showing your partnership with that retailer. They usually appreciate that. And another thing I think entrepreneurs should look at is velocity, as you promote. So you promote, let's say you promote for a month, and you want to see that after you promote, that when you come off promotion, that you're basically you're hockey sticking a little bit, not hockey stick, you've got a newer, a higher baseline, and you continue to watch that. And you do that with a couple of specific retailers, and you continue to watch that over time.
I completely agree. Now, you did kind of hint at the number of SKUs. So one of the questions that I get very often from founders is, how many SKUs could I launch with? How many SKUs should I have? How do you think about your SKU lineup?
It's tough. You don't want to be single SKU'd anywhere, because you're going to get destroyed. I think, when I think about our popcorn set, I try to have at least 3 SKUs. Preferably, I'd like to have 6, and I'd like to be double faced, because we were talking about promotion earlier and getting, your stuff off shelf. If you can build a brand block on shelf, it almost becomes like a billboard when you're walking down the sign. And we notice that if you've got a healthy amount of SKUs, it benefits all your SKUs. But you don't want to over SKU. It's really tough, because then if you over SKU, you're kind of got a bullseye, and the retailer will actually, kind of keep it, because you're taking up a lot of a shelf space. So you want to make sure that you've got a healthy group of SKUs, not too many, not too few. I typically think that for us is 4 or 5, but no more than that.
Okay. And Carlos, how many SKUs do you have? Because the nice thing about ice cream is everyone has a favorite flavor.
And this is, again, I can't stress, and probably we'll talk about just this whole idea of sales fundamentals and knowing your category well. But in ice cream, it's shelves. So you want to have a full shelf of ice cream. So you want to have 7 pints. I also tend to believe that if you want to get 3 SKUs in, you probably have to offer the retailer 4. Because there is this whole idea of not giving you everything that you want, or everything that everybody asks for. But I completely agree. The last thing you should do is over SKU, because then you start lapping and then you start getting into that whole losing the tail every reset, and that puts you in a downward spiral. So
I think this is the right time to go into those sales fundamentals. And I know you can offer a masterclass in it. Can you talk to us about how you think about it and how you've grown businesses that you've grown in the past?
Yeah, I think what's important is, first, as a early on company, the sales fundamentals, right? And by sales fundamentals, I mean your assortment, merchandising, pricing, and shelving strategy should tie into what your brand stands for. If you're trying to establish a premium brand, then don't go give it away with an EDLP or a sustained deep promotion price. don't be shelved with brands that do not deliver on the same type of benefit and so forth that you're trying to deliver. So everything at the beginning has to tie to that kind of that concept and that proposition that you're bringing to life. Then as you grow, it's important to keep track of these sales fundamentals, but also recognize that the US, even though it's one country, every single region behaves differently and every retailer requires a different plan to succeed. So one of the things that has been very helpful is being willing to adjust your sales fundamentals to succeed in that particular retailer that you're in. And I've been on times where I had no competition in a particular set or no direct competition. So you approach it very differently than if you're the third or fourth player trying to increase your share. So being open to that and being able to do that, and sometimes without having teams of sales strategy people, but finding a way to do that is very important. And it also ties back to, you have to usually have data to come up with the right sales fundamentals.
Absolutely. One of the things that is cornerstone to the way that survey does it is we think of micro execution at the shelf. So we think that if you define the shelf as that retailer, that category, and that geography, and that could be as little as, you know, one block versus a different block within the same zip code, that triangle becomes your shelf, and that's your battleground. And that shelf is going to look different, you know, in a Wegmans in the Boston area on one category versus the same category in Los Angeles versus going back to Boston, you know, competing on the 7-Eleven shelves. So being able to target that, and you don't have to have a location for absolutely every situation, but you kind of have these clusters and these bundles where you see things come together. Any fundamentals that you think of in Bella, that you're thinking of, that you're like, if it wasn't for this, like, this is something I always have to keep in mind and hold that at the forefront?
I think for us, one of the things that's been successful is right time. A big reason why people enjoy Shaka tea is that we are caffeine-free tea. And SPIN's data shows that caffeine-free tea is growing 9 times faster than caffeinated. But this was not the case back when we launched 3 years ago. This has definitely been the past couple of years. Before the pandemic, there's been more of an emphasis on mindful living, good sleep. People aren't bragging that they're at the office till 11. They're bragging that they ended at 5 and went to do yoga and then were able to make dinner with their kids. It's an amazing cultural shift. And then with the onset of the pandemic and everybody living, working, educating from home, you know, good sleep, quality sleep, that's essential. So we found that really in the past 18 months, timing, so much of business also, you can have a million mentors, you can get all the right advice, you can hear everything, but there's definitely an element of timing that goes into products being successful, we found in the Shaka journey. So I wish just at the forefront that I hadn't beaten myself up, but why are we not growing so fast? We had to get our supply chain, we had to learn about distribution, get the right product and partners, and then we're seeing like this tremendous opportunity now is being that caffeine-free, you know, herbal tea on the shelves. So sorry, that was slightly rambling, but I hope that gives any entrepreneur listening that, you know, don't read too much of the industry news and compare yourself to others. You're on your own journey, and, you know, stay focused, stay true. It's really worked well for us to have fewer SKUs. And if you're on the right path and you have a great product, it's all going to hit. Just maybe not when you expect it.
Exactly. Thank you. So Charles, going back to fundamentals for you, I know you have a strong opinion on branding and how it goes through, you know, very similar to Carlos's thought about when you're making those decisions, know what is true about your brand and your product. Can you go on that?
I could go on branding on multiple fronts. I think when we were talking before, you know, we were talking about packaging and what great packaging does for your brand. Because we've been around for a while, we've seen so many different evolutions of our branding and our packaging, and we've seen products very similar in terms of product quality, but with different packaging have vastly different velocities. So my advice to entrepreneurs is to be nimble and not to order too much film, and to watch what works and to continue to evolve. That you're always a work in progress, and you always need to get better. And and to keep tweaking, and to continue to be nimble.
Yeah,
So
flexibility is key. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just saying that's so true. And one of the things that Harrison says, which sounds like such a downer thing for such a positive brand, and I swear he's a very positive person, as am I, is that every day we're owed failure, not success. And you just have to keep committing to excellence and those little tweaks. And by the way, your branding is amazing. I mean, the first time I picked up Less or Evil was because the branding popped off the shelf. So you've got a great
It
person.
wasn't always the way. I mean, when I first started, I did all the packaging myself because we didn't want to pay for someone to design the packaging. It was too expensive for us. So
First one on 99 designs for like literally think $99. So I've been there, but the tweaks and just committing to that excellence, and every day hearing your customers as well. I found that buyers have been really helpful with tweaking packaging.
Yep.
They're explaining to us things that aren't obvious because we live in our little founder bubble of running the company. But what would their customer need to really like pull that product off the shelf? I don't know if you.
That's so right. You're the retailers. Some of the buyers of the retail, they should be entrepreneurs, because they spend so much time in the shelves, and they know the velocities of all the different SKUs. They know what works, what doesn't work. They know the call outs that customers are looking for. So you can partner with those and listen to them, and they'll leave you a lot of nuggets of gold.
Yeah, I if I can tie a lot of these conversations back to that comment, spend as much time in store as you can.
Yeah.
Actually, try to make most of your decisions while you're in front of the shelf. And anytime you see something in the data, go validate it at the store. Like, are you seeing your competitors on promotion? Are you seeing how your packaging reflects the light, which is different in many different store environments? Are you seeing your shelf placement? You don't see it in the data, but you go to the store and your product's out of stock. So a big piece of advice I can say, any time spent walking the store and walking your category and walking your aisle is well worth it.
Or hiresurvey.com to take pictures of your set and all these different retailers.
Yes.
I have to put you on my commission plan, Charles.
And if you, I guess as transition to that, there's some enable your team to share pictures of the site anytime they're there, or their spouses or their families. Like, I haven't been able to travel during the pandemic, so my father-in-law is my Wegmans store check person, and I send him out there every time I can. So I just want to reiterate, because I think it ties to the data conversation, it ties to the packaging conversation, it ties to the sales fundamentals conversations. Be in store, or get the resources to do that.
I totally agree. And I've always said, when you get data like IRI data or Nielsen data, it's wonderful because it's your market share. And I call that great scorecard data. But you have to decide what you're doing based on what is actually happening inside of the retail store.
Yeah.
As far as your retail strategy goes. And so it's very important to spend that time in the store, very important to talk to buyers, very important to ask the people that are stocking the shelves where to find something. Like, be in the wrong aisle intentionally, you know where it's supposed to be, but ask where it is and where to look for it, and just see what that response is, right? Are they highlighting your competition?
Oh, sorry to interrupt. If you're not buying data, go talk to a stock shelving person, and they will tell you what moves. They will tell you even how many cases per week the top selling brand does. They will tell you whether your brand is performing or not. And if they tell you, well, this one doesn't move very well, not a very good sign. So
I've often said, if a store employee tells you something like, for example, when you're in frozen, you often have the problem of condensation on the glass doors. And if they're telling you that they have that problem and that stickers on the door is good, believe them. There's no reason for them to not guide you in the right direction.
Yeah.
So I call all of that data instead of scorecard data, it's your game plan data. And that is what football coaches use to win Super Bowls. So definitely spend the time in the store. That is where you're going to have a lot of input. Shoppers and consumers will tell you very honestly what they like. And one of the questions that we have is, what kind of choices did you do around direct to consumer? Did you start with that? And did you use online as test marketing via social media, or asking people flavors or what people valued as far as product benefits? What was the role of online in both selling and in information gathering?
Who wants to start?
That one goes to anyone that wants. Go ahead.
You, Charles, because you probably have the product that's most likely to sell online. My story's not going to be that great with heavy
Yeah.
glass fridge.
Okay, well, we sell popcorn. So if you know what cubing out means, like our like a 5-pound package of popcorn cubes out as if it's like $20. So we were never really an online brand until the coronavirus hit. And then all of a sudden we had to figure out, because we were, we would have stuff on our website just so we could use it as a, kind of a sampling people. We never really took it seriously. Then all of a sudden we started getting swamped. So we had to figure out box size, cutting down our dimensions on every, so we, over the course of the last, I don't know, 13, 14 months, we've become much more efficient and much better online, but we've never really used it as a vehicle up until now. So not really someone to talk about it.
We have a similar story, I guess. Nick's got into DTC, and Nick's does actually sell ice cream online. I think it doesn't get any harder than than that.
Hard to do.
Challenge.
And we sell a pretty decent amount of ice cream online. And a couple of things I can tell you is, we first went with the most cost-effective fulfillment partner, and that was not the right decision. We ended up having to scale back and then relaunch with the right fulfillment partner. But it's become an invaluable asset for us. It does multiple things. One, we sell it across the country. We're building a good subscription base. I guess part of the benefit of selling Better For You ice cream is that you can eat it every day. And we have people who order enough ice cream every month that they eat it every night, right? It's part of their ritual. And we're learning from them. We're building one-on-one connections with these consumers. They're telling us which flavors are rising to the top. We are testing messaging in any of the digital marketing that we're doing to support our DTC channel. And we're testing things in real time. And now, for us being a company that's expanding into other snacks, we feel like we've cracked it on the most difficult product already. And now it gets better only gets better from here. But being a person who had been traditional, because I came from yogurt, and yogurt is a product that you also don't believe can be sold online, I have a whole different appreciation for what DTC can do. So I would say don't dismiss it because it hasn't been there. I think the pandemic has changed and step changed the opportunity for it, and it's definitely something that should be considered.
Can I offer one more nugget of gold, just because I was listening to you, Carlos? We hit a home run when we offered a sample box, and we basically went to USPS, and because our costs were exploding, and we were like, okay, so how are we going to get? So they said, okay, there's this box you could ship anywhere in the country, and it costs like $4 or $4.50 to ship anywhere. And it turns out we could stick like 7 small bags of popcorn, or 7, because we have Power Curls and Paleo Puffs. So we put together this sample box that has like 7 different things, and we put a little pin in there, some little goodie thing, and we sell all that stuff at cost. Basically, if it costs us 25 cents, and all of a sudden we got thousands of people ordering this sample box, and people loved it. And they would leave comments on our website. We love this, love this, love this. It was the best sample program that we've ever done. So if there are any entrepreneurs out there, I mean, if you can break even and get customers to try your product, it definitely does drive demand.
Yeah, and I think on our end, just sharing, selling a liquid, online that just adds weight. So our primary product is our iced tea. We also have tea to brew at home. That works great online, lightweight, easy to ship. With our primary product though, which is why most people are finding us, they're more familiar, they're seeing that in retail and so forth. I mean, it's $15 to ship 12 bottles anywhere in the country. So it seems a little bit at odds with our big, anthem of premium product, accessible price point, because all of a sudden the product then becomes, three something if you
Yeah.
break it down. So it's definitely a different type of audience. We did, jump on that pandemic bandwagon of, oh my goodness, we got to focus on this now. And what we learned last year was if we spend $1 in ad spend, we can get 2 to 3 back. And so that was pretty good. But it's a pay to play game. We try as much as possible. Again, we're pre-A funding, although we do have some venture funding. So we just try to be lean and scrappy. We know our primary place with our iced tea is definitely the retailers. We don't do slotting fees in general. And so the customers that want to organically find us, we actually just decided in the past month to stop advertising to make those sales. We have the data to show now. Later on, if we wanted to go there, we could do it. But for our spend and our, what we're trying to do, it's honestly not for our product at this moment in time. So maybe there are different moments in time and depending on your product.
Yeah,
But Matt,
you know, Bella,
frozen, that's impressive.
You're learning, right? It's called conservation of capital, and you're realizing that's not a good return on investment. So you're pivoting and you're learning to fight that another day, which is a really important lesson for aspiring entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and we're doing home delivery. We were really stoked. We are working with Nestle Waters North America Ready Refresh. We're in California, the entire state. They can deliver it also at the equitable price point that we champion, and we'll be expanding with them to other parts of the country.
And speaking, since we were talking about cash ROI, Carlos, you had a great point about sometimes you do something with a retailer because of the ROI, and sometimes you do it because of the relationship ROI, each retailer being different. Can you talk to that point?
Yeah, and I think, well, it goes both ways. I would recommend anytime you're doing something to support the retailer, are you getting credit from that retailer for doing it? Some buyers will be, great, you are investing in this third party and it's bringing traffic to my shelf and I see it and I love it. And some will be, well, I don't get measured or scorecard on that investment. So I would much rather that you do this for me or invest in this Kroger specific or 8451 specific vehicle and so forth. And then you have to balance the ROI of the program itself versus the ROI of the relationship. And sometimes that's all it gets. You'd be surprised on sometimes when you get a decision of, no, we won't bring you in, that you were one coupon program or one additional 10% slotting or one more promotion away from getting across the finish line. So it's important that you're thinking about your investment, not just in the true ROI sense, but also what it's bringing to you and what you're trying to achieve with that retailer.
Absolutely. The scorecard and the playbook is, the retailer has their own, and you need to understand what they're measuring. We have 1 minute left. Is there anything that you guys want to just say as great advice to the founders? And as you answer that, I'd like to invite Carol back on stage. Bella, do you want to start?
Yeah, I would just say there's so many kind people in this industry. And if you can speak to other founders and ask them, please tell me about mistakes that you made. I've learned so much by the kindness of others who are so much further ahead on the journey that, just told me top three things on their brand journey that they wish they had known. And that saved us definitely time, energy, and resources. And at the same time, no one's going to know your brand better than you. So trust your instinct. Listen to all the advice you can, kind of then get in a quiet space, meditate, ruminate on that. But your instinct is probably right. It's your brand. You think about it 24/7, literally. You probably sleep like 4 hours a night because you're always thinking.
Carlos or Charles?
I'll echo that. I think there's so much feedback and information around you. Think yourself a consumer. Think of your extended family as consumers. So what do they think about your products, your competitive products? Anytime I'm in store and I see somebody grab either our product or the competition, I'm curious on why they're doing it. And I'll stop people and ask them and say kind of what motivated you to do that. And people, maybe not today, not these days, but often they're pretty willing to stop and talk to you about it. So always be gathering information and trust your instinct, and not just your instinct as a founder, but your instinct as a consumer and as a shopper as well.
My advice would be not to stretch too far too fast. Just to slow down a little bit, make sure you spend your money wisely, especially when it comes to slotting dollars. And then I think when the world opens up again, I'm a huge proponent in getting your product as possible.
Well, thank you to all of you. Thank you to everyone that joined us and is listening. One of the questions was, are we recording it? Yes, it will be found on our website and on Branch Food's website. And Branch Food will be sending you an email. So yes, you can relive it, or if you had to step away for 15 minutes because your child needed your attention or your boss did, your kid is your biggest boss. Definitely know that this is happening. Carol, would you like to say any final words on Branch Food?
Well, I would like to thank you, Tina, and thank you to Carlos, Charles, and Isabella for this extremely insightful session. I think you guys shared invaluable insights and advice with our community, and we thank you for your time and effort today, and also for the support that you're extending to the community of aspiring entrepreneurs out there. So thanks again. And we'll share more in a post event email to all the attendees about Branch Food and survey.com and ways you can get in touch with us and connect with us. We're here to help. We're here to support food innovation as much as we can. And we thank you all for attending. And be sure to check out the remaining 3 sessions that are taking place in April and May. We will be covering marketing strategies, raising capital, and innovative sampling solutions to help you succeed in the future of food. And in the meantime, I wish you all a great evening wherever you are. And thank you all for tuning in. And thank you again to the wonderful panelists and to our awesome moderator here. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it.
Mahalo. Bye.
Bye.
And hej då in Swedish.